I woke up that morning and, for one merciful second, forgot she was gone. My hand reached across the bed out of habit, the way it had for 11 years, searching for warmth that used to be there before 6 in the morning. Then the silence hit me, thick and total, and I remembered the hospital, the machines, the doctor's careful voice. I lay there staring at the ceiling fan turning slow circles above me, thinking about the black suit hanging pressed in the closet. Somewhere in this house, our daughter was already awake, quietly getting ready for her mother's funeral. The church was full by 9, and I stood at the front receiving hands I barely felt. Neighbors, cousins, co-workers, all of them squeezing my shoulder and calling me strong. "She loved you so much," an old woman whispered, patting my cheek like I was a child. I nodded and thanked people I couldn't fully see through the blur in my eyes. Somewhere behind me, my daughter clutched a photograph of her mother laughing on a beach, before either of us knew how little time we had left. I told myself I would get through this 1 hour at a time. It was during the third hymn that I noticed her, Mara, my wife's closest friend since college, standing near the back wall instead of beside the family like she normally would. She wasn't singing. She wasn't even looking at the casket. Her eyes kept flicking toward me, then away, then back again, like she was working up the nerve to do something she'd already decided against twice. I assumed grief made people strange. I had no idea, not yet, that she was holding something in her purse that would unravel every memory I thought I owned of my marriage. After the service, while people lingered by the flowers offering condolences I could no longer absorb, Mara touched my elbow and asked if we could talk somewhere quiet. Her voice shook in a way that had nothing to do with sadness. We stepped into the small side room where the pastor kept his robes, and she closed the door behind us like she was sealing something in. "I promised her I'd give you this after," she said, pulling a folded envelope from her bag, my name written on it in my wife's unmistakable handwriting. My chest tightened before I'd touched the paper. I unfolded the letter with hands that weren't steady, half expecting some final loving goodbye, the kind widowers read aloud at anniversaries for years afterward. Instead, the first line stopped my heart cold. "I need you to know the truth before someone else tells it wrong." My eyes moved faster than my brain could process, skipping ahead, catching fragments. Apartment on Belmore Street. 4 years. I couldn't leave you because of Emma. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. Mara stood watching me read, arms wrapped around herself, waiting for the moment my face would finally break. Then came the sentence that emptied the room of air entirely. The person my wife had loved for 4 secret years, the one she wrote about with a tenderness she never once used describing our marriage, was not some stranger, not a co-worker, not an old flame from before we met. It was Mara, the friend standing 3 feet from me, the woman who had held my daughter as a newborn, who sat beside me at hospital appointments, who I had trusted completely for over a decade. She had been the great love hidden inside my wife's heart the entire time we were married. Mara didn't deny it when I looked up at her. She only nodded, tears sliding down a face that had comforted me through every hard week of the illness. "We tried to stop," she said quietly. "We never managed it." I felt something collapse behind my ribs that had nothing to do with grief for my wife's death and everything to do with grief for a marriage that had never fully belonged to me. Every anniversary, every quiet Tuesday dinner, every version of love I'd believed in, none of it had been the whole truth. I thought about the nights my wife came home smelling faintly of someone else's candles, the excuses about girls' nights that ran late, the way she and Mara went quiet whenever I walked in. I had noticed those things years ago and buried the suspicion because trusting her felt safer than confronting her. Standing there holding the letter, I finally understood that safety had been a lie I told myself, not a truth she gave me. The man everyone called the grieving husband had spent years mourning a marriage already gone long before the diagnosis. The letter's final paragraph wasn't an apology. Not really. She wrote that she stayed with me because I was steady, because our daughter needed a home that didn't shatter, because leaving would have cost more than she was willing to pay. "Some part of her did love me," she wrote, "the way you love a house you've lived comfortably in for years, even while dreaming of another." It wasn't cruelty. It was simply the truth she'd been too afraid to say while alive, saved instead for a piece of paper and a friend brave enough to deliver it. I didn't scream at Mara. I didn't throw the letter across the room the way some version of me imagined I might. Instead I folded it carefully, the way you fold something you know you'll need to read again, and I asked her the only question that mattered. "Did she ask you to give me this at the funeral, or did you choose the timing yourself?" Mara said my wife chose it, on purpose, so I would hear the truth surrounded by people who loved me, not alone in an empty house. Even in dishonesty, apparently, she had tried to be kind. Weeks later, I told my daughter a version she could carry without breaking, that her mother loved deeply and complicatedly, and love doesn't always follow the rules we expect. I kept the letter in a drawer I rarely open, not from anger, but as proof that grief and betrayal can share a heart without canceling each other. Mara and I barely speak now, though I no longer hate her. Hating her would mean hating the one person who truly knew my wife underneath the woman I thought I'd married. I buried a wife and a marriage on the same day, and somehow, I'm still standing.